Well, welcome everyone. We will give everyone just a couple minutes to join. But while we wait, I actually want to show off 2 new features that we have in Grist. The first is our newest feature. It just came out on Monday, I believe, and that is user presence. So right here at the top, you can see that 2 other people are viewing this document other than myself. You won't see yourself as a viewer because obviously you know you're viewing it, but I do see that my other Grist account is viewing the document, and then here we've got Nick viewing the document as well. So really cool when you enter your documents and someone else is also viewing them, you should be able to see this right away. Now, if you don't share your documents with everyone or anyone, you won't see any other users. But if it is a group document, you will see some people on it. The other cool new feature is comments. So if you haven't checked this out yet, be sure to. Again, really great for collaborative documents. So just to the right of the share icon at the top of your document, you'll see the little comments bubble. When you click that, it opens a panel in the right-hand side. Now, currently, there's no comments, but if you want to comment on something, you would right-click on a cell, whether in a table or a card, and you'll have the option to comment. Now, with comments, you can @mention people. So if I start typing I can tag someone, I can add the comment, and now when they see it, they can respond, they can tag me in another comment, and look, we've got a response. Let's go twice, 3 times, absolutely. So you can comment in threads, you can apply another comment, again, just right-click on a field, and then you can comment on that field. When there is a comment, you'll see the little yellow triangle there to let you know that that field has a comment. Really fun. Now, with comments come notifications. So under document settings, which can be found in the bottom left-hand navigation panel under tools, we got document settings. We now have this notifications area. So there's 2 types of notifications now. There's document changes. So if you want to be notified when something changes in the document, you just toggle that. And then you also have comment notifications. Now, these notifications are emails. The emails are being sent to the email associated with your Grist account. With comments, you can be notified of all comments. By default, you're going to be emailed for any replies to your comments or anytime someone mentions you. Or you can set to none if you don't want any new email notifications. So very cool. With document settings, the rest of the settings do apply for all users. So if you change the time zone in document settings, that affects all users. But notifications are user specific. So I can choose to have no notifications. Oops, none. And then, for example, Nick can go in and say, I want every single notification. I want to know about every comment, every change. And his notification settings are different. But again, anywhere else in document settings, that does affect everyone. So if I change the time zone, that would affect Nick as well. So some cool new updates that have come out recently. I wanted to just show those off. And then last week, we actually hosted GristCon virtually. Those recordings are now available in a playlist on YouTube. So I'm going to share a link to that playlist. So that little pop-up will give you that URL directly to the playlist. Definitely check out all of the talks that happened. It sounds like it was a really good time. Unfortunately, I was out of the office, so I missed it, but I'm looking forward to catching up on the recordings. Welcome everyone to our September webinar. Last month, we covered the not-so-secret secrets of Grist. We explored many features that often get missed by our users. So if you weren't able to attend that, you can find a recording of that webinar, of course, with all of our previous webinars on our YouTube channel. They are located under the Build with Grist webinar playlist. A recording of this webinar will be available there as well sometime next week. Now, in today's webinar, we are going to learn how to create document tours and document tutorials in Grist. You may have actually seen both before and didn't realize that you can actually build these on your own. So let's start with document tours in Grist. What are they? Document tours provide step-by-step instructions to help users navigate and understand how to use your document. This is actually a beta feature in Grist, so setup won't feel quite as polished as some of our other features, but the end product in your document will look great. So many of the templates in our template gallery have a document tour. As a reminder, you can access our template gallery from the Grist homepage. So at the bottom of the left-hand navigation panel, you'll see Grist resources. And first under this list is templates. So clicking this will take you to our template gallery. And we're actually going to take a look at the travel planning template. I'm just using Control F to find it. Now, the first time you access a document that has a document tour, it will automatically start. I've already accessed this template before, so the document tour does not automatically pop up for me anymore. But you can always access a document tour by clicking Tour of this document at the bottom of the left-hand navigation panel. So when you click that, this little thing pops up, and this is our document tour. You have a title, and you have some body text. You have this little indicator with the dots showing you how many cards the tour is in length, and it actually updates to show your progress as you move through. So this first card is just giving us a quick overview of the purpose of the template. Use it to plan your next adventure. You can click next to proceed to the next step in the tour. So now we have an overview of the current page we're looking at, trip overview. Nothing too exciting happening yet, but we do see that the progress is updated in the little dots. So we'll click next again. And now our card moved. So it's now linked to a specific cell. Just show the user exactly where to begin entering data. As it says, you add a new trip here. So we're starting to understand what we're supposed to be doing in this document. Go ahead and click next. And now it moves again. So now it's showing us where to add trip details. Okay, so we're starting to understand that workflow. Now our card's back to the middle of the screen. So cards can be linked to specific cells, but not to specific widgets. So if you have a table or card widget, you can have the tour point to a specific cell in those widgets. But any other widget, I recommend placing the tour in the center of the screen and then just describe where the user should be looking. So for this particular case, the calendar does take up a large portion of our screen. So the user should know where to click when we mention the calendar view. Because it says create a new event by clicking its start time in the calendar view. Okay, so we click in this calendar. Perfect. We'll click next. And you see, once again, it's pointing to a specific cell in our card, telling us to select an event in the calendar view, edit its details here in the activities card. And now we're back to the middle. So this is another great example of explaining to the user where they should be looking. So I have my itinerary widget up here at the top collapsed. And the instructions in this card explain to the user where to look for the widget and then the purpose. So they know, oh, okay, that's up here. I can check it out. Awesome. Now we click next. And now it actually takes us to a new page. So the purpose of the page is described in the pop-up. We click next and we are on another new page. And this pop-up is pointing to a specific cell to help emphasize this packing list widget. So the other two widgets we see on this page, trip and trip details, the user would be somewhat familiar with them already because we just saw them on the last two pages. You would select a trip, you see the details, but now the new piece of information is the packing list. So that's what we're trying to highlight with the pop-up here. And then finally, we just have a card to conclude our tour. So a fun little adventure. So now that we've actually seen a document tour and we understand what the end goal is, how do we actually build this? All of what we just saw is actually contained within a special table called Grist Doc Tour. We can always view this special table from raw data, which is in the left-hand navigation panel under that tools menu. You'll see raw data. And there we see the Grist Doc Tour. When we open it, we see all of the data that was used to build our tour. So just one key thing to point out is that the title has to be Grist Doc Tour with this capitalization for the special properties to apply. There are 5 required columns, which you see here: title, body, placement, location, location cell. So we're going to build our tour from scratch, and then we can go through each of these columns in detail. So to start, I have a copy of the travel planning template. If we go to raw data, you'll see that I do not have the Grist Doc Tour table anymore. We're starting from scratch. But this is what we need to create in order to create our document tour. So you'd click the green Add New button, and we just want to add an empty table. Now you have to name it this special name: Grist with a capital G, Doc with a capital D, and then Tour with a capital T. Again, that capitalization must be exact for the special properties to apply. And next, we need to create our columns. As I mentioned before, there's 5 required columns to be added here. So I'll just add 2 more. First, we have our title. Now that's just a text column for the tooltip header. And then we have body, another text column, but for the content of the tooltip. Next, we have placement, another text column, but this indicates the tooltip position relative to the target. We'll get into that as we have more data to look at. We have location. This is actually going to be a formula column that we'll cover in just a minute. And finally, we have location cell. Now this contains an anchor link of the target cell. And as we start adding data to our table, we'll understand this more. So to start, we want to add some data to our tour. I do recommend having 2 browser windows open with your document. One with the Grist Doc Tour table open, and then another where you can actually click around and get information. There is a lot of jumping back and forth, so just having 2 windows open can be helpful. I'm just going to work between 2 tabs. So I'm going to open a second tab. So here's my first tab that has the Grist Doc Tour table, and then a second tab that I can navigate around in. Now, tooltip slides will appear in the order that they are listed. So the first row in our table will be the first slide they see. It's a good place to just give an overview of the document. Let the user know what is the purpose of this document that they're looking at. So our document is the travel planning template. We'll just use that as our title. Now I'm going to be copy pasting the text from a document so that we don't have to wait for me to type. That is the bulk of creating your doc tours, is the actual typing. And then we want to give a quick overview of this template. So what is it for? I'm going to wrap this text. There we go. So let me zoom in a bit for you. Our title is going to be Travel Planning Template. And then it's vacation time. Use this template to plan your next adventure. Awesome. Now let's get into location and location cell. Location needs to be a formula column. So to enter a formula in Grist, you just click the equals key. Did I enter something? There we go. Had an extra space in there. You just enter the equals key and it converts the column into a formula column. Now the formula we want is self hyperlink. That is a function that takes the document's URL and then you can do other things with it. So in this case, we actually want to add the location cell. And that's going to tell our tooltip where to be. Now it's giving me an error because I have nothing in location cell right now. For this particular pop-up, we just want it to appear on the home page. So you would just go to the home page and it's already there. You don't actually have to do anything if you just want it to appear on the home page. The home page of your document is the first page that's listed in that left-hand navigation panel. So when you type in your document URL, this is where you're going to go. And now we get to see our tooltip. We see our title. It's vacation time. Use this template to plan your next adventure. Okay, this looks great. We don't need to do anything else. So next, we actually want to describe the purpose of different pages. We've given them an overview of the document. Let's give them an overview of the page we're looking at. In general, I suggest making your document tour follow your workflow. So whatever that means, if that means showing them one thing on this page and then jumping to another page, that's fine. Do whatever makes sense for your workflow. For us, our workflow is going to be really simple. We just follow our list of pages, nothing too intense. Oh, and I had clicked away in the same document. If you click away from your Grist doc tour table, it's always available under raw data. And I can open it back up and now we can continue editing. And I'm just going to add a backslash here to get rid of that error. It just adds, oops, a slash to the end of our document URL, which is very long. And there we go. It just added that to the end of our document URL. So next we want an overview of the trip overview page. That's our next step. We add the title. We add some body. Again, we're just explaining the purpose of that page. And then we have to decide where we want this to appear. Now, I want this to appear specifically on my trip overview page, which is also page 6. Something that isn't too terribly important at first is thinking about if your pages change, how these pop up. So obviously I want this trip overview to always appear on the trip overview page. So I do want to include page 6. So I'm going to jump back. I'll include page 6. The reason I didn't for step 1, which is the travel planning template, it's an overview of the entire document. I just want this one to appear on whatever the first page of the document is. If the order of my pages were to change here on the left, and let's say I move itinerary to the top, my travel planning template step would still appear on that first page. So that's why I'm not including a page on that first one. Most of the time, if you are adding a document tour, your document's probably not changing a lot. So you don't have to be as specific as I am here about including a page number or not. Okay, so now we've got our second step. We can click tour this document, and now we see our second step. But now that we've explained the purpose of the page, we get into the nitty-gritty details of how to enter the data. First, users should add a trip to the trip table. So specifically, I want a tooltip that's going to point to this cell. In order to do that, we want to copy an anchor link. You can right-click on a cell and then select Copy Anchor Link from the menu. There is a keyboard shortcut, Control-Shift-A on PC, and Command-Shift-A, I assume, is the Mac equivalent. If you are on a Mac and you right-click, you would see the Mac equivalent shortcut. But I will copy that anchor link. I see the little notification that's been copied to my clipboard. Go back to our doc tour. Now, because I'm copy pasting data from another page for the title and body, I'm just going to come right to location cell to start and paste that anchor link. Now, this is not going to work. You do have to modify that anchor link because our location column is already putting most of that URL in via self-hyperlink. So we need to delete it from our anchor link. When you paste an anchor link, delete everything before the /P. So that you should have the /P/ page number. That's basically what that's doing. And then followed by the rest of that anchor link. And that's telling it where on the page to go. Now, if you're wondering why we don't just use the anchor link and we actually add a second step here to use self-hyperlink, it's to protect your tour should the document URL change. So self-hyperlink, again, is a function that pulls the document's URL. So if it changes, self-hyperlink will recognize that. So right now, my document title is Document Tours / Travel Planning. If I changed this to just Travel Planning or any other name really, my anchor links would break because they specifically say Document Tours Travel Planning. But if I change that name, that link is now broken. Whereas self-hyperlink knows that change happened, and so your tour doesn't break. So that's why we have that second step. Now let's actually add the body or the title and the body. Again, we're just telling someone where to add their trip information. Add your trip here. Okay, so now we can jump over to our tour, click the next step, and there it is. And it's linked to that cell. It says add your trip here. It looks great. So next, a user would need to add details to the trip details card below. So I'm zoomed in a lot, so I'm gonna kind of spread things out. So we want them to add details here. So let me just, again, we copy that anchor link and paste it into our location cell. Again, with the anchor link, we want to delete everything before the page because that's what self-hyperlink is replacing. And then let me just add the title and body. Jump back, We see our tour. There we go. Add your trip details here. Looks great. And then once a user creates a trip, they actually want to add events to their itinerary. So our next slide should explain how to do that. Basically, they'll click into this calendar to create an event. But remember, with the calendar, there's nowhere to link to specifically. So we're just going to have that pop up right in the middle of the page. And we want it to be on this page. So we're going to copy the page from the URL, which is, it's just page 6. Here we go. The title's create an event. Create a new event by clicking on start time in the calendar view. And we can test our tour again to see that. Looks good in the middle of the page. Now, once an event exists, they can view event details in the linked card by clicking the event in the calendar. So let's add new event. And so they would just click it and it would appear in this activity details card. Obviously, it was already selected because I just created it, but we want to be able to tell them that. So we can right click on a field in the card to copy the anchor link. Go back to our tour, paste that anchor link, and delete everything before the page. Okay, so let's see our new card. Okay, let me zoom out a bit. So I do recommend viewing it zoomed to 100% so you can see how other users would see it. Because as you saw, it shifted from on top to on the right. So this is really where it's going to live, is to the right of my card view. We see it, it's linked to my field, but I don't actually like this location. It's covering up my calendar, and I want users to see the calendar and the card. And that's where that placement column comes in handy. So with the placement, you can tell it how you want it to appear. Top, bottom, right, left. We're just going to say top. And so let's see if it will. With placement, that's one where you want to refresh it. So I'm going to just restart the tour. Click through. Okay. So now it's on top. So now I can really see the calendar. I can really see the card. It looks really good. So I'm going to leave it there. So that's all placement is doing, is how is it placed relative to the location. So. And then finally on this page, we have our collapsed widget at the top, itinerary. So users can click into this and they'll see a full list of events for the selected trip. And so we want to bring their attention to that because it's at the top of the page. They might not notice it. So here we're just pasting in our title and body. But with this, we want it to appear on the same page, but just in the middle of the page. If you know you're not changing pages, you can take the information from your existing location cells and copy paste. So there we go. We've got that one. I can reboot my tour, click next, and then I can see how that looks, and it looks good. Okay. Now, just a little tip while you're testing this back and forth. If you don't click finish and you just close it out, the next time you open the tour, it'll start on that tab and you can click next to see the thing that you just added. Just a little tip. Whereas if you click finish, it'll start back over from the beginning, which if it's not refreshing, click finish, it'll refresh and then you can redo it. But if you don't click finish, it makes it a bit easier. So now let's move on to the next page. We've covered everything here in our trip overview page. The next step in our workflow is this itinerary page. This view is similar to the last, but instead of utilizing the calendar widget, it utilizes a table. We covered each step pretty clearly in the last few slides. So for this one, we'll just summarize what the user should do on this page in just a single slide. We don't want to bore them with endless slides that just kind of repeat the same thing. So this one, we have title, we have the text. Now I need the location. So I'm just going to stick it in the middle of the page. So again, we just copy the page number from the URL at the top. When you are copy pasting the page, make sure you get that front backslash. So it should be the /P /number. Let's see how that looks. Jumping back to our tour. So this was the previous slide. We didn't click finish. We just closed it. So it's showing us that slide. We click next. And now we can see it pulls us to the correct page. We can read through our body. We can see our title. Everything looks good. Cool. So far, so good. We close that out. Our next step is the packing list. So this one's really simple. You select a trip. You see the trip details, but then you also see your packing list. And we're going to summarize all this in a single slide. Again, we don't want to bore the people who are viewing our tours. You try and make them as short as possible. And this packing list is the only new thing they're seeing. So we want to draw some extra attention to it. We're going to place the pop-up on a cell from this table to help do that. So I'm going to just right-click the bottom right cell and copy my anchor link. So in the new row, we paste our anchor link. You guys see how repetitive this gets. Delete the URL before the /P. And then now we add our body and our text, or title and body. And then let's see how this looks. Click tour. It's going to go back to that last open slide. It's okay. It's covering most of our packing list. So we actually want to replace this. So right now it's to the left of the cell that we selected. If we put this to the bottom, there's all this empty space. So let's put it to the bottom and see how that goes. So placement, we just update to bottom. I'm going to finish it because it needs to refresh with the placement. Click through. And now it looks much better. Placing it down here, now they see the full packing list. It's not covering any columns, but it also is drawing their attention over to this new table. So far looks good. Now, last but not least, we can add a closing slide. This is not necessary at all for your end users, but it just gives the tour a nice conclusion. So because I create document tours for our templates, I like to put on a little closing slide to kind of like polish it off. So this one, we're only going to put a title and nothing else because I want this to bring them back to the home page so that they can just start right back at the beginning of the document and they can start entering their information and they're good to go. So that's all we're going to do. Go back here, close it out, reboot it. And now we have one more slide. Let's view it. Brings us back to the home page. Bon voyage. Awesome. That's our tour. So all you're doing is setting up this table with some columns. Document tours are as simple as that. There are 3 optional columns that rarely get used in our document tours across our template gallery, but they are still pretty useful. And these columns allow you to include links in your document tour. So let's go through those next. So we're going to add 3 new columns. And these three are link URL, link text, and link icon. So link URL is what is the URL you want to direct them to. Link text is the display text of the link. And then link icon allows you to put a little icon before the link. So let's start with link. What do we want to link here? Now, jumping back to our document, we have this calendar widget. Our Help Center has a really nice calendar article that talks about the calendar widget, how to set it up, blah, blah, blah. This might be useful to people coming to our template, for example. So I could include that in my tour using these three columns. So what is our step that talks about, here we go, create an event. Create a new event by clicking on start time in the calendar view. Let's say at this point, I wanted to link something about the calendar widget. We're going to do that for the create an event step. So that is step number 5. So first, what is the URL we want to link to? It is this support page. And so we paste that as our link URL. And now we need to add link text. And so the text is going to become the link, but no one wants to look at this ugly URL. So what are we going to replace it with? We'll just add some text that says, learn more about the calendar widget. I'm just going to paste that in. We'll wrap it so you can see it better. And then now we have this link icon. What is this? There is a link to the icon list in our Document Tour Help Center article, which I'll share shortly. But this link takes you to this page. And this is our icon list. It's just a list of words. So you do have to test them to see what they look like. Generally, they're pretty obvious, but we're just going to use the Grist logo. Okay, so we copy that little text there, and then we paste it into our link icon. And then now let's reboot that. And now we have learn more about the calendar widget. It's a link. When I click it, it takes me to the link that I included. And then that little icon appears at the very start of the link. Now the icon's optional. You don't have to include it. But there are lots of options and some cool ones too. You would just go through. If you're like, what does the columns one look like? You can just paste it in and then reboot your tour. And now you can see what the columns one looks like. Okay, so that is how you create the document tour. To share your document tour, you simply share your document. The document tour will appear automatically the first time a user accesses the document. After that, it's always available in the bottom left-hand navigation panel. You have that tour of this document link, and they can click that, and the tour will start. You can also force the document tour to appear regardless of whether the user has seen it before by adding repeat doc tour to the end of the URL. So obviously I've seen this now before. If I come to this again, it won't pop up, but you can append the URL with $repeat doc tour. And when you share that link with users, it'll force that to pop up. But again, it will pop up the first time that they access. Now, everything we've covered is available and explained in detail in our Document Tours article in the Help Center. I'm going to share a link to that right now. Now, Document Tours give users a quick orientation, but we do also have document tutorials, which are instruction-driven and interactive. When someone opens a tutorial, Grist automatically creates a private fork of that document unique to that user. And then this allows them to follow along, make edits, explore freely without affecting the original. So our Grist Basics tutorial is a great example of this. You can access the Grist Basics tutorial from the Grist homepage. At the bottom left of the left-hand navigation panel, which obviously you can tell we frequent a lot today, you'll see tutorial listed. Clicking this will open the Grist Basics tutorial. When you click that, you're taken to your own private fork of the document. And this tutorial appears in a lovely pop-up. And we can read through the instructions. We can follow along. Let me restart. Obviously, I had opened it before, so it was saving where I was at. So you can see the main slide content has the white background. And then we have a second section down here, which is the optional box content, and it has the shaded background. You click next to go to the next slide. And the tutorial is filled with images and videos to help guide us. And the document is editable, so users can learn hands-on by following the steps in the tutorial. Now with document tours, the Grist Doc Tour table was hidden under raw data. With tutorials, the special table is only accessible by manipulating the URL. So we can delete the fork information from the URL. So here in my URL bar, I'm going to delete everything from the tilde on. And then I'm going to add \m\default. And now we see our special table titled Grist Doc Tutorial. There's only 2 columns you need, and that's this slide content and box content. Slide content is the text column that holds the main content for the slide. It appears on the white background. Box content is the optional text column, and when filled in, this content appears in a shaded box at the bottom of the slide. And that's useful for tips or just extra content. You can use Markdown to format the content in both and embed images and videos. So let's walk through the steps of turning a document into a tutorial. So I've got this document already set up with data and views, so we can just focus on creating the tutorial. The first thing we need to do is create our new table. You click that green Add New button and Add Empty Table. Now you name this Grist with a capital G, Doc with a capital D, Tutorial with a capital T. So just like before, the capitalization must be exact in order for the special properties to apply. Next, we just need to create our columns. Only 2 columns to create. We have slide content and we have box content. I'll just delete this extra one. And again, these are both text columns. Slide content, the main content of our slide appearing on the white background. Box content is the optional text that appears in a shaded box below the slide content when you actually have content here. Otherwise, it just doesn't show. So now that we've got our table set up, we need to update the document type. Document type can be updated on the document settings page, which is accessible in the left-hand navigation panel at the bottom of the Tools menu. So in that first area of document settings, you'll see document type. And we want to change that to tutorial. When you click confirm change, your page will refresh and your document will open as a fork of the original, meaning any changes you make won't be saved to the original. Now, as document owner, you can easily override the original document by clicking the share icon, which is currently hidden, and then you can click replace original. Now, we did see an error pop up because there's no data in our Grist doc tutorial table. So I'm going to go ahead and add some data. Now, because it's not knowing what to do, we're going to go ahead and replace original. And now we actually see data in our tutorial. So let's actually start adding real data. So for our intro slide, I want to add a heading at the top. As I mentioned earlier, Markdown can be used to format text in both the slide content and box content. If you're not familiar with Markdown, it's pretty easy to follow. I'm going to share a link to the Markdown guide. That link goes to this page. It covers how to do various formatting in Markdown. So this takes you to the basic syntax page, which has headings, paragraphs, line breaks, how to add emphasis, etc. There is a second page called extended syntax that you can access from the bar at the top, and that goes into even more. So it covers how to add images, anything you need. Check out the Markdown guide. But to create a heading, we use the pound or number sign. And then the number of pound signs you use corresponds to the heading level. So to create a level 1 heading, we simply add a single pound sign, and then you type your heading. And now I see my tutorial update. You can insert images or videos that are hosted externally. To do so, you would add an exclamation mark followed by alt text in square brackets. And then you would add the URL in parentheses. So I'm going to copy the URL from my side table here. And now I've got an image in my tutorial. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste some data in from our existing tutorial. Okay, so now I've got text in my tutorial. I see that where I have text in the box content appears in the shaded box. In slide 2 pages, I don't have any box content, so I shouldn't see this shaded box. So I only see the slide content. Looks really good. Now remember, none of this is saved to the original. We are still viewing a fork. So we need to click the share icon and replace original in order for our changes to apply. If you are worried about making a bunch of updates and forgetting to replace original, there is another way to review your document tutorial by working in 2 browser windows or tabs. So in one, you would open the document in default mode. And to do that, you delete everything from the tilde on, because that's your fork information. And then you add \m\default. And that opens default mode. And you can edit the tutorial here. And then what you do is just open another view of the document, but without default mode. So just basically everything before that in the URL. Paste that. And so now I can view my tutorial in the second tab or second window. Let's say I add, we'll add one more slide. I'm adding it in default mode. So I see default at the top, but I have that second tab with my tutorial open. You would want to click restart. That's what refreshes it to check for changes. And now I see I have a fourth slide. There's the data that I just added over in default mode. So that's another way to view it and edit it without risking losing your data. So to share your document tutorial, you simply share your document again. Now, reminder again, the URL is everything before the tilde. So that is the link that you can share. The document tutorial will start automatically when a user accesses the document. And because the fork is user specific, their progress is saved so they can close it and come back to it at another time. Now, again, everything we covered is covered in detail in the document tutorial help center article. So I'm going to share a link to that now. There you go. And that is how you create document tours and document tutorials in Grist. Thank you everyone for joining. Next month's webinar is actually going to be on how Grist uses Grist. So how do the employees of Grist use Grist, whether at Grist or personally? You guys kind of got a sneak peek today. The travel planning template is based on a document I use to plan my travels. So that's one of the ways I use Grist, but that's what our next webinar will cover. Like what are the wild ways that we use it? So definitely join us next month and have a good rest of your September, and we'll see you in October. Thanks, everyone.